Welcome to the Business Playground, where we discuss real business owners' stories and their tips and tricks with no filters. Welcome to the Business Playground. This is your host, Jacob Odell, and today we have the honor of speaking with one of my business professors, Dan Wubbena. He is a Morningside professor here in Sioux City, Iowa, and the great thing about him is he has plenty of experience with business, obviously why he's a business professor, but he is going to talk a little bit about himself today and give us some advice on running a business, starting a business especially, and just the ins and outs, the back end, and the grittiness of running a business. So Dan, please give a little introduction about yourself, please.
Sure. Well, I went to a small school similar to Morningside, which is now closed, called Westmar. That's where I majored in psychology and in marketing. And right out of college, I got a job at Gateway Computers. So cut my teeth in a number of different areas at Gateway. Gateway actually was a Fortune 200 company, 20,000 employees, about $7 billion a year in sales at its peak. And I did quite a few different jobs in sales and marketing there. And there's one of the things that we'll talk about is called Gateway University. And it's a term that's been passed around in this community because a lot of people that worked at Gateway went on to start their own businesses. And even though they had college degrees, they talk about graduating from Gateway University. When you work for an organization like that, that's growing exponentially and so quickly, a lot of what we learned was from doing, not from a textbook or from a professor. So Gateway University would be tied in here. And that's kind of where I got the bug for entrepreneurship. I've been, unbeknownst to me at the time, I've been a small business owner my entire life. Had a paper route when I was a little kid, mowed lawns when I was younger. Those are entrepreneurial ventures. But really began my entrepreneurial journey with my brother. We started a company called B&D Golf Supply, where we supplied products to small municipal golf courses who couldn't afford to have contracts with Titleist and Callaway. So we would be their middleman. We would supply them with golf supplies. And I've had my fingers in a couple of different jars. So how did I end up in the educational world? Well, my last gig at Gateway, I was a corporate trainer, more training the public, not employees, trade shows, going out and doing product demonstrations, which is kind of the same thing as just being in front of a classroom teaching. I was teaching potential clients about products. So actually started in education at the community college here, Western Iowa Tech, ran their marketing program for about 7 or 8 years, and the opening for the Small Business Development Center director, which is all things SBA for smaller mom and pop startups.
Yeah. Within the community?
Yeah, we had a 6-county region.
Okay.
So I was basically Northwest Iowa. And loved it. It was a great job. It allowed me to do a lot of things that I love to do with small businesses and entrepreneurship. Politics kind of drove me out of there.
Sure.
And that's when I went full on into the entrepreneurial world. I ran a property management company for about 8 years, and then decided that the 60 and 70 hour work weeks and the 50,000 miles a year were a bit much, and this position became available as an adjunct, and it just morphed into now I'm a full-time professor here.
And are you still running some of the other businesses on the side while you're doing teaching?
Yeah.
Or how's that going?
Yeah. So I still have property management. It's very few and far between because I can't pick and choose the jobs that I want for them.
Sure.
But I consult, and my wife consults, so we still have our company, and we still generate a fairly significant amount of cash through the business.
Sure. So, recommend always to have multiple sources of revenue or income in that sense. So, that's great that you didn't just give up on the property management, but, teaching's going well for you. You wouldn't have met me.
It is. It's a great gig.
Yeah.
But even at this level, we don't do it for the money.
Yeah. No,
it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
Small business ownership is awesome. I love being my own boss. So does my wife. And one of the benefits is tax write-offs too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to kid you about that.
Yeah,
tax write-offs are great.
We definitely have to talk about that too. I want to get into the actual nitty-gritty of starting a business. So what is the first step that someone needs to take to actually get their foot in the door with their business?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a question that so I'm going to refer to the world of like small business development regional director as the world of economic development. EDs is what they used to call us. That's not necessarily a great acronym anymore. So in the ED world, that's a typical question, and there's really no answer to that. I guess if I were to have to give you an answer, the first step is you have to have an idea. Other than that, every journey is different. And we'll go through a little bit about that, but there is no first step other than you have to have an idea. Depending on what your idea is, that's going to dictate what the first step is, depending on what your experience is, depending on where you're located, depending on who your market is. So everything beyond the idea dictates what that first step is.
So just you got to come up with something, and then once you have that idea, do you recommend that someone reaches out to someone in that field, that industry, get their foot in the door, explain it to someone, or do they try to learn everything on their own and go that route? Because I know like some people, they're afraid of other people taking or stealing their ideas, and then they go and run down that stream of, I need to trademark my idea, or I need to patent my idea. Or do you think, just go ask someone within your community, relatives, family, and see how they might be able to help you to take that first step? Because most people don't know what they're doing when they first have a business idea.
Yeah, that's another great question. And the juggle is sharing your idea to gain knowledge, but keeping your cards close enough to your chest that someone doesn't steal your idea. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. So that's part of where the big gamble is, and the whole idea of small business ownership is a gamble.
Yeah.
So there's no standard answer to that either. I mean, I like to think that most small business owners are more than willing to share their story, what works, what doesn't work, not necessarily trade secrets. But if you ask any small business owner, hey, tell me some of the hurdles that you failed to clear and what you would do differently, I think anybody will share that information with you. So a couple of non-answers, I guess, right off the bat, but it's so specific to your journey.
Sure.
You can't put it in a box. But if you're comfortable reaching out and asking for information, it's a great place to start.
Yeah. I mean, in my case, I asked you, and that was a tremendous, help to me, because obviously I knew nobody coming out here to Sioux City. I didn't know who to approach or anything like that. And then just having a civil teacher-student relationship actually sparked some ideas. And of course, I figured in my head that you weren't going to take that idea because you were older and content with being a teacher, and you had your own stuff going. So I was like, you know what? I don't think he's going to steal this idea from me.
Well, that's a great point. I think where you start is with someone you trust.
Yeah.
And then you branch out from there. Especially in your case, not saying that you have to be older and wiser to do this, but when you're young, and then you throw in the fact that you didn't know anybody here, you have to start with somebody you trust.
Yeah.
And then you build your circle from there.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the more you know. Yeah. The more people you know, that'll help you out. But keep your circle tight.
Yeah, true.
There
are people out there that will steal your idea. There's no doubt about it. So you do have to be a little bit careful.
Yeah. Little thieves. Swiper, no swiping. Got to bring that back.
Yeah.
So when starting a business, there's all these different legal parameters that you need to cover, right? Whether you're filing for your EIN, getting your Social Security in check, your credit score. There's so many factors, especially being young, which a lot of us who are younger in this generation don't really understand or can comprehend the legal aspects of a business. So just an overview of the legal process and what someone needs to do in order to get legal with a business.
Yeah. So it's similar to when you asked the accounting question. So what the approach that I like to take is you learn enough to know when it's time to hire somebody. So two things. Number one, no one will ever convince me that you shouldn't be an LLC. And number two, no one will ever convince me that you shouldn't have at least $1 million of general liability insurance. Both things are very inexpensive, and both things are very simplistic, but have really big advantages for a small business owner. You and I went through and set up your LLC in 10 minutes?
Yeah, it was very simple. Just went onto the Secretary of State website and filed everything there, IRS as well.
Yeah.
Get your EIN.
Yep.
And then submit all the paperwork, and then do your your certificate of organization.
Not articles.
Not articles.
Certificate.
Yeah. For everybody that needs to file their certificate of organization.
But that's with Iowa.
Yeah.
Every state's different.
Yes, correct. Iowa, you don't submit an articles of an organization anymore. It's certificate of organization. So make sure you do that, or else they'll send you the letter back, and then you got to waste more time.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yep.
But.
So does that really matter in the world of accounting? Not really, because the IRS sees Jacob Odell exactly the same as JSO Productions. But what it does is give you anonymity. Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to use your Social Security number anymore. You have an EIN number, which is your business's Social Security number. Plus, you can also start building business credit, where you don't have to apply as Jacob Odell for a line of credit or credit card. You can apply as JSO. So you have some anonymity there. But from the tax purposes, it's exactly the same. So that's the one reason why I think it's a no-brainer. There's no reason you shouldn't be an LLC. There's no downside to it. I had this argument with my older brother for about 3 or 4 years. He's been a small business owner for probably 15, 20 years, and he was a sole proprietor. He was not an LLC. And I think part of it was just because he's my older brother.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let my little brother tell me what to do. And finally convinced him there's no downside to it, period, none.
Right.
And the other thing is that liability insurance. So you may need more insurance, but general liability is a must. So you're flying your drone around. What happens if you accidentally lose control and you break a window?
Yeah.
That's what your liability insurance is for. You get $1 million policy for $500 a year.
Yeah.
And you're covered. Right? Those are two no-brainers. So when talking about the legality side, throw the insurance in there, those are the first two things you should do as a business owner. Get an LLC, get general liability insurance.
Okay. Yeah, definitely sign up for that stuff. And where would you recommend someone goes to find that kind of insurance?
Well, I don't think I should plug anybody because
Sure.
I'm not being sponsored.
Yeah.
Although I guess I would be open to sponsorship. I like to go to the locally owned companies that represent multiple companies and allow them to shop it out, because the type of liability insurance depends on the line of work that you're in. Not to say that one of the national companies wouldn't do it, but I'm a small business owner. I'd like to give back to small business owners.
Yeah. And with the insurance and everything of that sort, you're bringing other aspects into your business. So when touching on that topic, what is your recommendation for partnerships? Whether you're getting into business with a friend, a family member, or, maybe it's just some random person that had this idea and came up to you and was like, hey, let's do this together. And you started to build a relationship with them. What is your philosophy on partnerships?
Slippery slope.
Yeah.
Double-edged sword. One of the things that I learned in the Small Business Development Center is that's the reason that an operating agreement was developed, as long as it's in black and white, but everything has to be in that agreement. So you sit down and you decide who's in charge of what, who's responsible for what, how much ownership does each person have? If we need to decide on something, do we vote? If you have an even number of members, how do we break a tie if there's a tie? Everything has to be laid out in this operating agreement so that there's no arguments.
Right.
If it's not in writing, there's an argument. If there's an argument, it's going to sour the relationship. And that I've seen it too many times, that it wasn't in writing, becomes an argument, and now the business is soured because the partners can't get along. And that old adage about don't go into business with your family members, I don't necessarily believe in that. I think my brother and I worked well together. I don't think we'd go into business again together after that. We're just two different people. But, you only know so much about production. I only know so much about property management. So if you can bring someone else in that expands your offerings and allows you to tap into a new market or a new customer base.
Different skill sets.
Yeah.
Like, that's huge potential.
Yeah.
And bringing in other people, and not only their skill sets, but bringing in their minds, because you can have a great idea, but someone else can improve on your idea, and you can also work together that way. And that's where, the slippery slope comes along, because then it's like, oh, well, it was my idea. No, it was my idea first and whatnot. Right. And then that's where things go.
I don't think you and I went through this, but that operating agreement is critical.
Yeah.
Especially when you have multi-member businesses. Single member doesn't really matter.
Correct.
But if you have multiple members, it's critical.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of people who want to get into, online e-commerce stores. They want to do some Amazon stuff where they resell on Amazon or resell on eBay, drop shipping. And, those are all like single member businesses. And once you start expanding your team, with something like that. Then, of course, you want to do that as more of an employee standpoint rather than a partnership. Or would you rather do a partnership if you were bringing in someone who maybe has capital for something of a venture?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And again, it's specific. Everybody's journey is different. But generally speaking, especially if someone has capital, they're going to want ownership.
Right.
But if you and I are deciding to partner, and I've got an existing business, let's say my property management, I need somebody to do photos and videos, you're more apt to come in and work with me if you're a part owner than as a contracted employee, right? It also assures me that now you have an incentive to do things well,
right?
Because now you're part owner. Instead of just collecting a paycheck, your income depends on the success of the business or not.
Sure.
So again, kind of another non-answer, but everything is. When you called me about this, the more I thought about it, is everybody's journey is different. You can't put anything in a box. And though we can have a bunch of generalities, but answering a question like that depends on the situation. But I think for the most part, if I'm early on and I'm thinking about branching out and bringing someone into the business, they have to be part owners.
Yeah.
They got to have skin in the game.
Okay. Because they have something to work for.
Yeah.
And it's not just
not just a paycheck.
Yeah. Okay. So definitely bring someone on who's going to actually do something and not sit there is definitely important. And, whether you're working with partners and stuff, how important is timing of a business and getting the timing right? You hear stories about YouTube and how YouTube was right there at the pinnacle of when broadband, internet connection and all that stuff was coming out. But there was a company before YouTube that even had the idea of YouTube before it was called YouTube. And they fell short just because the timing of it wasn't there. And what's your experience with, good timing, bad timing, and recommendations for learning how to time or market research your timing for your business idea?
You want another non-answer answer?
Of course, that's what this is all about.
Okay. So I'll give you two examples. Number one, I don't think I've shared this with you in class or personally, but think about Google. Google has become the generic brand term of anything internet searching, right? Even if you use Bing, you're going to say, I'm going to go Google it. Mm-hmm. Well, when Google came into the market, the search engine marketplace was dominated by Netscape and AOL. And there was about 30 different search engines out there. So the timing was absolutely ridiculously stupid for Google to try and come into this marketplace because not only was it dominated by two companies, it was saturated.
Sure.
But they had a significant competitive advantage.
Which is?
Well, they use the spiders. They use the algorithms so that your search results are more in tune to what your habits and what your personal interests are, right? Which is why now they're big brother and they listen to you. And if you have your cell phone, let's talk about DeWalt cordless tools, and all of a sudden you get a bunch of DeWalt ads, right?
Yeah.
But that's why their timing for them didn't really matter because they had this new technology. So I don't want to say that timing is 100% the reason or the reason that you fail or succeed, because from that standpoint, Google should have never succeeded, but they had a significant competitive advantage. But the one story I did share with you, and I'll share, this is not a secret. My brother-in-law and I were planning on starting a portable on-demand storage company, pods, the little white storage bins, right? You see the commercials, they bring it to your house, they drop it off, you box it up, and when you're ready to go, they come and take it away. So we were going through the business plan. We were going through all of the startup options. We were doing this, and we found our investor. We found our location. We had convinced the company to allow us to open up a franchise here. They had never had a franchise in such a small community, and everything was in order. All the dominoes were set. We were literally months away from starting this business, and I was going to continue to work. He was going to operate the business full time, and then we had our investor. So we were a 3-person business. And at the time, he got a job offer out west in the state of Washington that I couldn't pass up. So he left it up to me. He's like, yeah, if you want to run this business without me. And I'm like, it's a 2-man shop, right? I wanted to keep my job. Sure. I wanted to keep my insurance. I had a little baby coming. And, there's no guarantees that it was going to work. Well, about 6 months later is when we had the 3-month flood out in the community, out in Dakota Dunes, and every single person in that community was stumbling over each other to find storage space. So we would have been at full capacity for probably 6 months to a year. So if that timing, if we would have just held off, or if I would have said, yes, I'm going to do it without you, and waited 3 months.
You wouldn't be here.
Right. I wouldn't be here. I'd be sipping Mai Tais on the beach.
Yep. Freaking pods.
Yeah.
So, timing is important, yes.
100%.
But knowing what your competitive advantage is and figuring out what your strengths, your weaknesses, doing a SWOT analysis. And for those that don't know what a SWOT analysis is, your strengths, weaknesses, your opportunity, and your threats. So you definitely need to learn what all 4 of those are and do a little market research of what your competitive advantage will be if you were to enter a space like that. And in the case of pods, timing also would have been a competitive advantage because you would have been one of the only ones out here doing that and being accessible to other people. So timing is definitely important, but I recommend, I bet you recommend too, is finding out what your competitive advantage is.
Oh yeah.
Like that's your selling point. Why people are going to use you, what value do you bring to them is your competitive advantage. Why are they going to use you over, Joe Schmo down the street?
Exactly.
So
in the ED world, when we talk about competitive advantages, the old adage or the joke used to be, well, we don't need another sandwich shop on Hamilton Boulevard because a lot of people for some reason want to start restaurants. Well, there's been a lot of sandwich shops that have opened up and been successful on Hamilton Boulevard since that joke started. So having a competitive advantage sometimes trumps timing, but I don't think there's one more important than the other.
Okay.
So let me tell you a little something about that market research. I was working with this lady who actually ended up she was the Deb Dalzell Iowa Small Business Owner of the Year, right? She won a state award as being the female small business owner of the year. She was one of my clients.
Okay.
And she started out, I call it Sky Mall in a store. Do you remember those Sky Mall magazines where they had all these cool things that were kind of wants and not needs? No? Okay, you're not old enough to remember that.
Yeah, before my time.
Bespoke or Bespoke when they just
yes,
send...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so I do know that.
Before you bought that stuff on the internet, you looked at it in the Sky Mall when you're flying.
Okay.
She's like, okay, I want to open up a store that's a Sky Mall in a store where it's a bunch of cool stuff that you don't need, it's just wants. And, gosh, I forget what she called it now. She would really not be happy with me. Anyway, she was deciding on a location, and she found 2 potential locations not more than a half a mile apart. And one of them, there was significant difference in rent. And she's doing all the research online. She's studying the DOT traffic report. She's studying destination versus parasite stores. And she's studying all the stuff she's supposed to be studying. And she decides on the cheaper one because it's literally half a mile away from 2 different destination stores. And a destination store and a parasite means if a lot of stores set up next to a Walmart's a destination store. And when people go there, the parasites feed off that.
Right.
I can go to Walmart. Oh, there's this store over here. Let's go pop in there.
More traffic.
Exactly. So she decided that because she was close enough, she'd take the cheaper avenue. And I said, before you do that, why don't you just go sit out there? Go park your car and just watch. Instead of doing your secondary research, do some primary research. Yeah. Go sit out there, spend an afternoon, and just watch what happens. So she positioned herself in a place where she could see both. And she saw, well, there's this cheaper one, and the destination store was a Verizon store. People are in and out. And a lot of times people aren't happy to be there, right? Mm-hmm. Something's effed up about their phone or about their contract or whatever. So they're in and out, and not only are they in and out, but they don't want to be there. It's like setting up next to a dentist's office, Yeah. The other place was strategically placed between a Fairway and a Harbor Freight.
Yeah.
Which is perfect because, not to be sexist, but the wife goes to Fairway to buy groceries. The husband goes into Harbor Freight to buy some tools.
Yeah.
They want to be there. They're lingering. They're shopping. And this store was right in between there. Half a mile away, she chose that one ultimately. And
the more expensive one.
The more expensive one. Because of those factors, which she couldn't find in that secondary research. Sometimes you got to do the legwork yourself. That's the point.
Yeah.
The secondary research they find online is awesome, but it doesn't negate the need for just doing it yourself.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
it's a great story. She was very successful. She ended up just closing the store because they retired and moved to Arizona. Her and her husband were both entrepreneurs. She didn't even think about selling it. She didn't want her legacy to be someone taking over her business. Get funky gifts. That's what it was called.
There you go.
She didn't want her legacy to be someone taking over her business and not running it the way it was supposed to be run.
Sure.
So she just shut it and they retired.
Okay. Wow. I mean, yeah, location. That's what a lot of people say, especially in restaurant business, location. Because that's the more people that can see your name, that can come into your store, the more clients you're going to get, the more customers you'll get. And that's just, it's simple, very simple. You don't have to overthink it too much. The more people, the more eyes that you have on you, the better off you'll be.
Mm-hmm.
And
retail's hard enough. If you have a poor location, you're doomed.
Yeah. Like nobody's going to go out of their way unless they're a hot client or a hot customer, which is, they're ready to buy, they're ready to go. But a cold customer is not going to go out of their way. And especially in that sense, a Verizon customer who's pissed off, who's ticked, is a cold customer in that sense, even though you may think that they're a hot customer because they're just in that location at that time. But in reality, you want someone who's actually in a good mood to go buy.
Yeah, especially when it's wants, not needs. This is total frivolous stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing you need in there, just things you want.
Yeah, I want a pack of gum. Let me go get some gum.
Right.
You never know.
I want a hairbrush that doesn't...
Yeah. The bald guy needs the hairbrush.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I told you to polish your head. Just do
No,
it.
isn't that shiny enough?
It is. There's a light coming right over you, so you got a nice little glare coming off your shiny dome. I love it. So getting into the business side of it and everything, what are some very individualized personal skill sets that you'd recommend someone have to get into business? Whether it's being diligent,
time management,
being ready to take a no, stuff like that.
Resilience, yeah. I mean, gosh, again, that's really specific. I think it depends on the industry or the business that you're going into, but without a doubt, you have to have drive. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as a failure. It's a learning opportunity. Every single successful business owner out there has failed at something. I will guarantee you that. They have failed in their first, maybe second, third, fourth, fifth business idea and then succeeded on their 12th. So it's not about failure. It's about how many times are you going to fail and how are you going to pick yourself up after it. So that what'd you call it, grit?
Yeah.
The grittiness, the determination. I read a quote not too long ago that said there's so many people that have given up on $1 million idea because they let someone with a $50,000 a year salary talk them out of it.
Yeah.
So if you have an idea and you're passionate about it, let that passion guide you, right? Because you're done working 40 hours a week. Now you're working as much as it needs, and it's not 40, it's 50, 60, 70. You're done with punching the clock and worrying about, can I squeeze an extra 5 minutes out of my lunch break? Maybe you don't even take a lunch break, right? So I guess maybe it's that hard work. It's knowing that when you wake up in the morning, it's not 8 hours and you're done.
You gotta have a work ethic.
Yeah, you gotta have drive.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's hard for people. I mean, even in my case, you lose that drive sometimes. You wake up in the morning, you're just like, man,
I don't want to do it.
I just don't want to do it. And that's the hard thing.
So how do you overcome that?
Well, lately it's been pretty difficult, especially with trying to balance so many things. You're just trying to. I'm in that figuring out stage of trial and error because running these three, learning real estate as well. I'm also a student here at Morningside playing baseball. There's many things that I have to balance, and so the drive factor for me is like my family back home. I wake up every morning, I got a picture of my family on the wall, and it's kind of like one of those silly sentimental things, but that's what kind of gets me through it is, my family that's back home in Los Angeles, middle class family. It's like I'm the first one that's in college in my family.
That's cool.
That's something that drives me is I'm going to be the best, and nobody's going to take that from me. So I need to
but that's not cheesy.
No,
that's what drives you.
Yeah.
I mean, don't let anyone tell you that's cheesy.
Yeah. Because
if that's what gets you up in the morning and gets your ass moving, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
I used to have a picture, I have it in magic marker on my mirror, PMA.
Yeah.
Right. Positive mental attitude. No matter how shitty you feel when you wake up, you can control your attitude. And you're going to be more productive and more effective and efficient if you're positive as opposed to negative. Now, my wife and daughter might disagree with that because They say I'm negative and cynical and
Well, just a little bit.
yeah. Well, that comes with old age.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, you
yeah,
sure?
it does, man.
No, it's not internally.
No, I don't think so. Because look at me, I'm happy-go-lucky, man. I'm pretty lighthearted, but sometimes when I was in that mood, it was God, just give me a damn Red Bull. That'll perk me up enough to get me going, and then once you get going, it's like, oh, okay, now I'm in the groove. Because every minute that you spend working, you're generating revenue. Every minute that you're not working, you're not generating revenue. That's the hardest part about it is. And you're talking about juggling all these balls. Now, fast forward 20 years. Now you're probably married. You've got kids. And with kids comes all of these different responsibilities and all these activities. But that leads back to one of the benefits of being a small business owner. Right? When my daughter graduated from kindergarten, which is fucking stupid that they have kindergarten graduations, it was on a Tuesday at like 2 p.m. Well, I didn't have to take time off. I just scheduled myself that I was free at Tuesday to 2 p.m. I'm my own boss, right? The flexibility is awesome.
Yeah. You just be able to
do what you want.
Yeah, you're your own boss.
I want to have a 3-day weekend. I don't schedule anything on a Friday, right? I mean, it's easy.
It's luxury.
But then there's that little bit, that guilt that says, okay, I'm not working today.
I hate that.
I'm not making any money today.
Gosh, it's the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also really like psychological too. Is like there'll be times where I'll be out with friends or with family and I'm like, crap, I did not do that. Like I didn't do this certain thing that I needed to get done today. And it's just sometimes I lose track of being in the moment with like family or friends and stuff because my mind is always on other things with the business or oh crap, I didn't work out today. Now I feel like crap because I didn't work out today. I didn't work on my craft and stuff like that. So no, it's nice being your own boss and everything, and it's a luxury in that sense, but it's also a lot of work. And in order to have those certain skill sets, you got to be able to put in the work. Yeah. You have to have a high work ethic, and you got to try and keep yourself disciplined in some way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
That's the difficult
It's
thing.
tough. When I was running I had no other job other than the business. My wife stayed at home by choice. We wanted her home with the kids. So no, I don't have vacation time anymore. No PTO.
Right.
I don't have any health care. I had to pay for my own health care. When you have to pay for your own as opposed to getting it through an organization, it sucks. I didn't have any of the luxuries, right? I didn't have free coffee. I didn't have pens and paper clips that I could just grab out of the cupboard.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some drawbacks to it. And I don't think if someone decides that small business ownership isn't for them and they just want to be, a middle manager or they want to climb the ladder in corporate America, there's nothing wrong with that. Small business ownership isn't for everyone. A lot of people think, oh, this is going to be awesome. I'm my own boss. I write my own paychecks. Yeah, sure. But there's a lot more to it than that.
It's difficult.
It is. If it wasn't so hard, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
It is. It's tough.
And that's why they say, like, what's the saying? Like, 95% of businesses fail or whatever like that.
Yeah, that's loaded. Small business owner or the Small Business Administration says 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years, but that's a little bit loaded because if you close your shop, like my friend that owned Get Funky Gifts, she just closed. She walked away from it. They consider that a failure. What they consider a failure is if you didn't sell it for a profit or if you didn't transfer it or succeed it to another owner. They consider that a failure. So I would say it's probably closer to 35 or 40%.
Okay.
I think your odds are better that you'll make it than if you fail. But the first couple of years tell the tale. Yeah, for sure.
I also think it has to do with like almost like weeding out the weak.
100%
is like the economy, the people they want high value people that are making money, that are making business, that are making deals. Because if you don't have high value people, then we're just a bunch of bag of rocks that are just sitting around in a podcast studio doing absolutely nothing. Like there's just things like that. So I know
we're going to get monetized. We're going to go viral.
Oh yeah,
I know it.
Yeah, 100%. So we're definitely one of those high value people.
Yeah,
100%. But yeah, I mean it's crazy to think like that. We touched on like the deterrent of business, which is for a lot of people, family and friends. A lot of family members. No.
Oh, you can't do that.
Can't, yeah.
That's a stupid idea.
Yeah. And it's like the thing that always gets me is there's a man who created something that nobody thought would be successful. Do you have a pool?
A pool?
Yeah.
No.
You don't have a pool?
I have a lake.
You have a lake, right?
Yeah.
You ever use any like pool floaties?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know those little styrofoam tubes?
Yeah.
Yeah. What if I was gonna go
The
up
noodles?
Yeah, the pool noodles. Yeah. What if I was gonna go up to my mom and be like, "Hey, mom, I want to create something called a pool noodle." Oh, that's stupid. Yeah. How would you? What are you saying? You don't know anything about business.
Yeah.
That guy is sitting on the beach
drinking Mai Tais
right
now
because of freaking pool noodle.
Yep.
And, you know, like the dumbest ideas, the simplest ideas, can make you millions.
Yeah.
And it's simple as that. It's, you know, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like don't go and be discouraged by someone else's opinion. Like you said, a $50,000 salary for $1 million idea. Like you don't want to do that. And I think that's a difficult thing in today's generation with my generation is everybody's so quick to pull the trigger and just say no because they're afraid. And that's the most difficult thing or most detrimental thing that you can do for your future is to just say, all right, I accept my fate that someone else told me will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple things on that is, number one of the things, okay, so I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I had a great relationship with bankers when I was running the SBDC.
Okay.
And one of the things that I did for them is one of their clients, a longtime member of the bank, let's say, would come to them and say, hey, I want to start this business. Well, they would send them to me because first and foremost, if you want somebody else's money, you got to have a business plan. Mm-hmm. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And writing a business plan is difficult and time consuming. And that's where a lot of times you weed out the dreamers from the doers.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to sit down and write out this plan on paper, why in the hell would anybody give you money for it?
Yeah.
Right? So the dreamers and the doers is what we call it. You separate the dreamers from the doers because if you have a great idea, okay, well, prove it. Let's put some pen to paper here, do some thinking, and pitch me on it. And that's whether you want an investor or a banker or a SBA loan. And let's get this out of the way. There's no such thing as a grant. No such thing. No, I don't care if you're a gay, African-American, pansexual, non-binary. I don't care what your labels are. There's no such thing as free money.
Yeah.
Period. Okay. If you're taking other people's money, step one for other people's money is always a business plan. If you're not willing to write a business plan, there's no way in hell anybody's ever going to give you any of their money. So separating the dreamers from the doers. The other thing is, just because I don't think it's a good idea doesn't mean that it's not a good idea. We just talk about this generational difference. There's things about your generation that I don't understand and I don't care to understand, right? And so if I don't think it's a good idea, that doesn't mean it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea for my market, for my generation. So you eliminate that market because we don't care about that stuff, but your generation does. So you find somebody else who knows about that and go to them, right? I never tell people that I know everything about everything. Hell no.
Yeah.
In the world of economic development and small business ownership, I have a very small slice of expertise that I have, right? And if I don't know it, I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm going to say, I don't know. Mm-hmm. It doesn't sound like a good idea to me, but that doesn't mean it's not a good idea.
Yeah. Maybe you need to talk to somebody else about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe they'll even just help you get the ball rolling a little bit better too, because they got some ideas for you. I mean, especially in the SBA, you know, you're there to help that client out. And so, I mean, how many times did you offer like advice?
Every time.
Yeah, every time.
Whether they took it or not, it's not but that was just me giving advice. Now, that being said, no matter what stage of life you're in, like when I started doing this property management full time, I knew it was going to be tough. But I also knew that if it didn't work out, I could just go back and get a job, right? So it worked out in the sense that, you know, we made enough money, we paid the bills, we did fine, and never grew to the point where I could hire anybody full time. I had a bunch of crews that I would hire as needed, but it just got to be too much.
Sure.
70 hours a week, and I was putting on 55,000 miles a year. That was like, holy crap, I'm never home. So I walked away knowing that, okay, I'm done with this for now. Not to say I'm not ever going to go back to it, but now let's just go get a job.
Yeah.
And it just happened to land a dream job, really. But it's not about, it's a good example of, I'm not going to let somebody tell me no. I'm going to go try it. And if it doesn't work out, okay, I'll figure something else out.
Right. All right.
Simple as that.
Just keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
Easy stuff. And, you know, I want to transition into the actual back end of
Yeah,
businesses.
we got on a rabbit hole there.
Yeah, we did. We did a little bit. But I want to transition back into the actual business side of it and breaking down the key factors when it comes to running the back end of a business with your systems and processes, and the very importance of having processes in place for not only you, but for the future of your business and the future of your employees as well, for those processes so they know what they're doing. Elaborate on systems and processes.
Yeah, this could take a while.
All right. Another rabbit hole we go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So I think a lot about my days at Gateway, and Gateway was growing so fast, and they were so successful. And let's just get this out. Gateway didn't fail because of Ted Waite. Gateway failed because the people in New York, when they went public, convinced Ted that he wasn't smart enough to run his own company, so he stepped aside. They brought in a couple AT&T executives, and they ran it into the fucking ground. And by the time Ted came back, it was too late. So it has nothing to do with Ted's ability to run a company. If he would have never left, I think we'd still be here like Dell. They were our biggest competitor. So policies and procedures, the point that I want to make is that it's like you said, it's a lot of trial and error, man. You've got all kind of standards out there, but you can't put anything in a box. You know, from a manufacturing point of view, you got ISO 9000, you've got Six Sigma, and you've got Black Belt, and you've got Lean, and you've got all this crap where you can learn some basic and some foundations, but that's not going to tell you how to run your business. The only thing that's going to tell you how to run your business is you doing it, trial and error, what works, what doesn't work. So you remember the whole fly swatter.
Yeah.
You kill a fly with a sledgehammer or a fly swatter.
Yeah.
Right? And the idea is to find that balance between effectiveness and efficiency. What works for you. I was never on the manufacturing floor at Gateway, but I'd be willing to bet they went through probably 50 different iterations of how it was set up, who was responsible for what, how do they actually build it, and they did it from trial and error. So what works for a desktop didn't work for a laptop, right? Maybe you have 10 guys here and 6 guys here. I don't care. But I think the idea of going in thinking that you know what your procedures are going to be is the stupidest thing you could do. You can have a foundation. You have an idea of this is how I want to do it. But once you get into it,
things change.
Yeah, things change.
If you stay the same, you're not moving forward.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that. You know,
Yep.
We talked about being like stagnant and not moving at all, and that not doing anything is worse than doing something.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned from your class is if you're just doing nothing, like you're still doing something because you're moving backwards or you're staying in the same spot.
Yep.
So you need to do something in order to stay moving forward, even if it's a failure, because that's still going to help you move forward no matter what.
What was the quote? More is lost
from
more is lost from indecision than wrong decision.
Yeah, it is.
Make a decision, go with it. If it's wrong, fix it. Simple.
Definitely. Yeah. You just keep moving forward.
Yeah, and the policies or the procedures and how did you
the systems and processes.
Yeah. So, I mean, you think about anything that you do. What'd you do this morning? Did you brush your teeth?
Yep.
That's a process, right? There's a system in place. Your process is different than mine. I don't want to use your process. You don't want to use my process. Maybe the dentist is the only one who can tell us whose process works better. But it's kind of the same thing with anything that you do. It's your business. And your process has to fit who you are and where you want the business to go and what you want the business to be. And I think a lot of that has to do with you personally. So back to Gateway, the culture of the company is unbelievably important. We talk about this all the time. I think a cultural fit is much more important than salary, benefits, whatever you want to throw in there. And one of the things that Ted did is we were very laid back. When we went through sales training, what they taught us to do was to, in a way, imagine yourself sitting next to the client. You're kind of kicked back on the front porch. You got a glass of iced tea, and you're just chatting. Right? We're not hardcore salespeople. We're relationship. We're relational, and that doesn't mean that we're laid back in the sense that we're lazy. No, we worked our asses off, but it was. I'm not going to slam your head in the hood of the car and make a bunch of commission and take advantage of you because that defeats the purpose. You're never going to come back to me again, right? We want to develop long-term relationships, and we use kind of the culture of the Midwest, kind of folksy.
niceness.
Yeah,
kind.
right.
Yep.
We're kind, nice people. We won't take advantage of you. We use that to our advantage because, hey, I'm from the Midwest. You can trust me.
Yeah.
Right. Now, you have to follow up with that. You have to follow through.
Yeah.
Right. You actually have to be able to trust me for that to work. But it worked really well for us, and that's the culture that was established in the company. Is we're kind, we're laid back, but we fucking work hard. Right? Nobody was expected to work more than 40 hours a week, but if anyone who had any success out there, if they worked 40 hours a week, that was a really slow week for them. We worked 60 hours a week by choice. We wanted to be there. And I think when you talk about these procedures and policies and systems, it starts at the top. What do you want it to be? It's your business. So you find somebody that can live with your system. And if they can't,
Kick rocks.
yeah, get out. You got to recognize that early on, I think, because as you're growing your business, who you bring in represents you. They are your business now. So if you have one or two employees, it's not Jacob Odell out there. It's
Joe Schmo.
Joe Schmo out there who's representing you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, in that case, Ted was that guy.
Yeah.
Ted was that guy who...
And everyone he
brought their way.
hired bought into that mindset, that concept, and it just trickled down, and it worked. It worked.
And I mean, how do you think that he ended up creating that culture? And we talk about culture a lot when we're developing a business and developing employees in that sense of, training them, like if they're a cultural fit. And I think you told a story one time of when you got a job and they had like a casual Friday and you showed up in a suit.
Yeah.
Like even understanding cultural clothing of a work environment, like explain culture to a lot of people and how they might help with that.
That's a big rabbit hole. I'll give you a specific example. When I was running the property management company, here's what I would tell the people that were working for me. I didn't have employees. I had contracted people. I hired them when I needed them. And the only rule that I had, nobody's ever going to work as hard as a boss, period. You going to edit that out?
No.
You won't?
No.
You going to leave your yawn in there?
No, you can't see it.
How can you not see it?
They're on you.
Oh.
You're talking.
You're not on the video at all?
No, I am right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you can only yawn when I'm not talking?
Yes.
Okay.
It's same for you.
Okay. What was I saying?
We'll restart that. So we were talking about
I lost my train of thought.
crap. There it goes, Dan. But yeah, no, we okay. We're on systems and processes. Oh, got it. All right. Ready?
Yep.
So when we're talking about developing a team and the culture that comes with it, how do you go about developing culture, and what would you tell someone with culture and the story with your management group and all that?
Yep. So still to this day, the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around is that nobody's going to work as hard as you do as the boss. Nobody cares as much about the business as you do as the boss. And I'm not saying I'm the hardest worker in the world, but when I'm working on something, I'm working. And so when I would hire these people, I would explain to them there's only two rules. Number one, you work as hard as I do. Number two, don't sit down unless I sit down. So you don't take a break unless I take a break. If it's time to eat lunch and I forget, then tell me. But I don't want to see you sitting down, and I want you to work as hard as I did. And nobody ever did, but the point is to instill that in you. That's what I expect of you. And then I'm going to pay you for that, right? I never told them necessarily an hourly rate. I'd say, oh, here's what we're doing today, and it's going to pay you X amount. Let's say I'm going to pay you $100 for the day. If I saw you working really hard, and I saw that you never sat down unless I sat down, then I'd give you a bonus. I mean, one of the things that I will stress to anybody is you get what you pay for. You want quality employees, pay them.
Yeah.
But everything's trickle down. Everything starts at the top, right? So the culture that I wanted to create is if I'm going to pay you $100 for this job, I don't care if it takes 4 hours or 12 hours. I'd love for it to take 4 hours. Work harder, and maybe you'll get that $100 in 4 hours.
Yeah. I mean, you've touched on too of like not necessarily paying hourly for a lot of people and paying per project. Like in my case, you inform me, don't pay someone hourly to do a job that, they can do in 30 minutes because they'll drag it out. And you want to pay them by project and by the production that they can produce.
Yep.
And that's a key factor that I think a lot of people don't realize is, you make an hourly rate, but I mean, are you really working during all those hours?
Right. No, most people aren't.
Mm-mm. And you're sitting on your phone, you're on social media, you're just kicking it back. And For a lot of people who want to be successful, that's just not the case. Like, you are putting in the work.
Yeah.
You're not looking at the time. You're, oh crap, it is time to eat. It is time to go to bed. Like, I need to do these things. And I think as a business owner, you have to realize that time is valuable and you got to use it to the best of your advantage.
Time's the most precious commodity you have.
Yep.
So I actually want to give credit to one of my good friends, Trent Wright. He was a lifelong entrepreneur. He was married to the gal that won the award, and he made pickled asparagus.
Okay.
So even though I knew about this, and even though I was doing it, I never put it together like he was explaining it to me. So he figured out, and so he would jarred pickled asparagus.
Okay.
If you know what pickled asparagus is, it's awesome.
Oh, I've never heard of it. Okay. Never tried it.
So he would sit down, he'd say, okay, I'm going to cut these asparagus and I'm going to fill them up. And each jar had, let's say, 15 spears in it. And then he would seal it and label it. And he could do 10 of those in an hour, let's say. Well, nobody works as hard as a boss does. So he would say, okay, I'm going to expect you to do 7 an hour. And if you think $12 an hour is a fair wage, well, I'm going to give you $1.75 for every jar that you properly fill. So if you fill 15 an hour and you work your ass off, well, now you're making what? $22 an hour. But that's where the whole efficiency and effectiveness comes into play, right? Because if you make 22 an hour, but 20 of them are effed up, well, that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
So it has to be done correctly in addition to quickly. So he's the one who really first pointed that out to me specifically in a business environment. Yeah, I'm not going to pay you hourly. I want to pay you by your performance. Work better, work harder, work smarter, and you're going to make more money. Simple.
Pickled asparagus.
Yeah, it was really good.
Try it.
Dude, it's so good.
Really? Where can I get some of that?
Well, like his wife, he ended the business when they retired. This was a recipe from his grandpa.
Okay.
And it's a family recipe. He's the first one to commercialize it, and he actually had a pretty good business going, and he just ended it.
All right.
Tall Paul's pickled asparagus. Can't get it anymore.
Tall Paul's pickled asparagus.
Yeah.
It's like, it comes off the tongue nice.
Yeah.
Tall Paul's pickled asparagus.
Yeah.
I like it.
It was really good. It went well with Bloody Marys.
Is that your favorite?
It is. You should have offered me a Bloody Mary this morning.
Oh, yeah, I should have. Just a quick little 10 a.m. Bloody Mary.
Right.
Why not kick the day off?
You can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
Exactly. I mean, that's a Midwesterner kind of thing right there.
It is.
Which is still crazy to me. Like
drinking all day?
Yeah, like I don't know. I'll leave it up to you guys.
Okay.
I'm not that forte. That's not what I do. So.
Well, I don't either, but sometimes it's fun.
Dan, I've seen you plastered on a Monday morning.
Yeah.
All right, you show up to class hammered. No, I'm kidding. No, you've never done that. Just for confirmation,
yeah,
Dan's
let's
never done
get that.
Yeah,
that's clear.
But yeah, no, I mean, there's so many things that come along with growing a business and starting a business, and for a lot of people in the audience, that's their idea. They want to start a business. I have friends that want to start clothing brands. They want to start, content creation. They want to start social media agencies and stuff like that. And these are kind of newer avenues of business rather than what some of the stuff that you've been doing in the past. But for a lot of them, they don't know where to get started. And that was the whole point of all of this is I want people to feel almost safe with going to someone else for advice. Mm-hmm. And an individual like yourself has the knowledge, has the actual experience to go through that talking points with. And I mean,
well, are we wrapping up?
No.
Okay.
I was just saying in general of like, some great things.
Yeah, no. So back to that question way back. What do you first do? The what I just heard you say is so true, but I guess the one bit of advice is just because you think it's awesome, that doesn't matter. It only matters if the customer thinks that it's awesome. If you think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but nobody's willing to pay for it, it's pointless, right? You've got to convince somebody else to spend their money on whatever your idea is. So when you talk about things like social media content, well, I mean, my kids always used to joke, the twins always used to joke, yeah, we're going to be millionaires because they were really good at vines. You know what a vine is?
Yep.
Okay, but they don't exist anymore, right?
Nope.
So just because you want something, just because you think it's cool, doesn't mean that it's going to work, right? And that's kind of where that research comes into play. You have to find a market. You have to find somebody willing to actually spend their money on whatever your idea is. Numbers don't lie. If you have this wonderful idea and you do the research and you find out that only 10 people are going to buy it, well, guess what? Now
You're not in business.
You're not in business, right?
You're done.
Yes.
That's the horrible thing. But it's the sad truth. You got to figure it out first before you jump 2 feet in.
Right.
And I mean, in my case, I didn't really figure it out entirely, but I knew that there was an opportunity for it.
Right.
Especially, well, we kind of did because, asked around, talked to other people like, hey, is this something that you're interested in? People were like, yes. So that's where the whole production aspect came from.
Right. But that was your research.
Yeah.
Right. You went out there and you asked people.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that people have the idea in their head where they need to put in that 40 hours of research and figure every minuscule detail out to the best of their ability in order to just get started. And I mean, yeah, it's true that you need to actually learn that stuff, but at the same time, you just got to jump in too.
Right.
You figure out the most important factors to getting started and then figure out the small things that'll help you because you're going to change along the way.
100%. But do you remember early on in our conversations when you were saying, hey, I'm going to add this, and hey, I want to do that? And what did I tell you?
You said, don't try to be everything. And
right. Do one thing and do it really well.
Yeah.
And then down the road, if you want to branch out, right? But you can't be everything to everybody. Find your little niche and do it very well, and then everything else comes naturally.
Yeah. And I honestly, when I took that advice, that's when I started to see more clients come in because, I was trying to do drone photos, virtual tours on top of headshots, on top of marketing. I was trying to start creating other videos for realtors and brokerages. And I was just blowing my bubble way too big. And once I started to, reel it in a little bit and just say, all right, take it easy, just focus on the actual, photography aspects of real estate. And then that's when it really started to blow up because people get overwhelmed with too many options.
Right.
That's why they always say, you want the 3 price strategy so you don't have too many options. That's a whole nother thing.
Oh yeah. Man. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. It's pricing. But
yeah, we could talk about that too. But
this is good.
Yeah. In the sense of getting everything figured out is you don't want to do too much.
Right.
And
so Beth Trejo is one of my favorite people in Siouxland. She started Chatterkick.
Yep.
Social media company.
We've had her on the podcast.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Love her. She comes in and guest speaks now and again. And she's a perfect example of that. She quickly reined herself in from wanting to do everything and focus specifically on, I think she started on Facebook with just updates, right? And now she's exploded. But you can't start at the explosion. You got to start small and then branch. It'll naturally come. I mean, you might have to push it a little bit, but do one thing and do it well. And I think any small business owner can use that advice: is don't think about being everything to everybody. Find your niche. Yours is photography. Do it very well, and the rest of it will come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
True.
Find a niche.
Yeah. So, you like pizza?
Love it.
Okay. I've had so many great ideas that never came to fruition for good reason. So this was, 15 years ago. And I live in North Sioux City. There was no pizza joints out there. There was one pizza joint that delivered, and they didn't deliver past 10 p.m. So I had the idea, I'm going to start a pizza joint, right? I had everything lined up. I had the location. I had the recipe. That was one of the competitive advantages. But how many pizza joints are there in Sioux City?
I couldn't tell you.
50, 60, right? Do we need another pizza joint in Sioux City? No, but I had competitive advantage. Number one is I was going to offer online ordering. No one had it at the time.
Right, this is before DoorDash, before Uber Eats, before all that stuff.
And before you could just go to papajohns.com and order online. Nobody had it. But I had a coding friend at the community college who was sure that he knew how to do it. I'm like, okay, let's do this. You can come into my business and we can order online. Number two is we're going to be open late. There's a huge population of young professionals in the Dunes area. And not that they're out till 2 a.m. partying, but if they're out with friends and they come home at midnight, maybe they want a late night snack. You can't get a pizza delivered out in the Dunes at that time. So we were open late. Number three is we were going to push carryouts, but we were going to offer a slice to go. Because if you stop by and you pick up pizza to go, two things happen. Number one, you have to sit there and smell it and punish yourself all the way home. Or number two, you open it up, you have a slice or two, and then you show up with a Pac-Man pizza, which nobody wants either way.
Yeah.
So we're going to have like a pizza on the warmer, and you picked up your pizza to go, and we gave you a slice to eat on the way home. So we had three significant competitive advantages there. And we had, everything was lined up. I had the investor, everything's ready to rock and roll. But I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months before we were going to pull the trigger, I found out my wife's pregnant. And I don't really want to be working nights and weekends, 70 hours a week with a little baby at home, So I'm like, forget it. I'm not going to do it. That's more about the timing. But did we need another pizza joint? No, we didn't. But we had specific competitive advantages, So it's kind of back to the Google thing. It doesn't matter if you think the market's saturated. If you can offer something that somebody else isn't offering, go for it, 100%. Why would I spend my money with you as opposed to the competitor? That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. I always deliver a Pac-Man pizza to my family when I pick it up.
I know.
It's so hard.
It is.
Yeah. If anything, that would have been perfect timing.
Yeah.
It would have been perfect timing.
It would have worked. But not only would I have probably ended up divorced because it's all nights and weekends, I'd be 700 pounds.
Oh, yeah, because you'd be eating pizza out of the back of the fridge all the time.
Dude. Yeah. Yeah. That's another one.
You would have been the Pac-Man.
Oh, without a doubt.
Dan the Pac-Man.
Would you like a pizza?
Yeah. Dude. I'd probably be dead. Heart attack.
You probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got some artery issues at that point. But, yeah, dealing with competitive advantage, talking about timing and everything.
Yeah.
But the last topic we haven't touched on is price.
Okay.
And I know you definitely want to talk about pricing right now. How does somebody, and of course, yes, determines what industry, the type of business that you're in, but how does somebody go about figuring out how they should price their service or product?
Yeah, that's so hard. And that's why it's so fun to talk about. Because think about this, as a small business owner, if you're selling your product, let's just use products instead of services to start with. If you're selling your product for $18 and you're happy with it and you're making money and everything's profitable, well, what if you could charge $20 and you're not going to lose any customers? That $2 per product is pure profit. That's all the white meat. That's the icing on the cake. But how do you know that, right?
Yeah, so, and you don't want to scare off your customers at the same time,
right?
If you do that,
right? So let's use your business industry as an example because you're service oriented, which is a lot different than product oriented. Product oriented, there's actually something called keystoning and factoring. There's a tried and true method that if you're selling products that will work. But with services, it's almost like a crapshoot. It's almost throwing darts at a dartboard. What do I charge for this? So first of all, you got to figure out what's your time worth. And I think sometimes with young people, they underestimate their value. They really do. I don't care what line of work you're in, your time is worth at a minimum $50 an hour. Your expertise in and of itself has significant value to it. I can't go out and do what you do, right? Maybe I know more about photography than you do, but I don't know how to fly a drone, so I can't do what you do. That's value. So I would always say, we ran into this with a gal who graduated a couple of years ago, and she actually wrote her senior thesis on a small boutique advertising agency that she actually started, which was great.
Awesome.
Yeah. And she called me a couple times that next fall, and she's like, I don't want to charge this much. I'm like, I don't want to say her name. I don't have permission. No. But I'm like, you have to. Until somebody tells you no, it's too high, stop undervaluing yourself. They can't do what you're about to do, right? And there's a whole thing on Facebook I saw about somebody who comes to build a deck for you. And this whole list of why it costs $1,200 instead of $400, which is what the lumber costs. And it's the same concept. So you're going to go out and you're going to do the drone footage. You're going to take the pictures. You're going to go back and you're going to edit them. You're going to pretty them up. You're going to go and load them onto the web page. You're going to make it simple. So I don't have to do anything. I just have to look and say, okay, looks good. Approve, right? So that entire process has value that I can't do in and of itself. So what it boils down to is, what's your time worth? What is your expertise worth?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, mine, I run it at $60 an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is JSO secrets behind the curtain, right?
There you go.
Do you tell people that your rack rate is $60 an hour?
No.
You just charge by
I just charge by the overall process that I or the overall service.
Yeah. So how did you come up with that?
So I took the $60 and then I accounted for the, equipment costs that I have. So whether I purchase the equipment or rent the equipment, which in my case, I have purchased the equipment. So, that's the drone. That's the time that it takes to do the actual drone service. So that could be 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the property size that we're shooting. Mm-hmm. And it also depends on the other factor with
editing.
Yeah, editing. The post-production. That's what it is. So in my case, it's the prep, the production, and post-production. So pre-production, post-production.
Yep.
So those are all how I got to that number. And it's not only the time that it takes to do the shoot, but the time to edit everything afterwards and the time to upload everything. Because in my case, a lot of people don't realize that uploading and downloading and exporting, those three things are one of the most time-consuming parts of my job.
Yeah, I never would have guessed that.
Yeah. Like you would think that like the editing process is what takes the longest, but no, it takes like 35 minutes to download and upload pictures. Like if I put pictures onto a Google Drive, it'll take probably 20 minutes because I'm delivering to someone photos, video, clips. Like there's so many things that I'm pushing to someone that they're paying me for, but that's what takes up the most time. And to get to that number of, $60 an hour, that's just what I designate my value worth. Because before, when we've had this discussion, I had it at like $25 an hour. And that's what I was making because I was coming from like, an hourly wage that I was thinking like, oh, $25 an hour. That's a lot compared to what other people are making. And I was super undervaluing everything. And once I upped it up to 60, people actually take you more serious when you have a higher price point.
Yeah. Number one, you never want to be the lowest price. Period.
Never.
That's not a competitive advantage. Number two is the whole idea. What you're doing when you're setting your price is you're selling them. And in sales world, it's all about WIIFM. What's in it for me? Mm-hmm. So if I'm telling you it's $200 for this project, right? Well, what's in it for you is you don't have to waste your time doing it. So in essence, is how much is your time worth to you? Because if you do it yourself, not only is it going to be lower quality because I'm the expert, but you're going to waste 3 hours of your time instead of 1 hour of my time.
Right.
Right. So in the service world, when you're talking about pitching these services, I think one of the things that entrepreneurs fail to realize is I'm selling you on what's in it for you is your time. It doesn't matter what I'm charging you because I'm saving you from having to do it yourself, and I'm going to produce better quality.
Yep.
So what's in it for you is, how much is your time worth?
Yeah. And, you touched on that point of like, in my case, it's 3 hours of my time and it's only an hour of your time. It's less than an hour of your time because if you think about it, all you are doing is you are already at the property that I'm shooting with. So you're there with me.
Yep.
You are now connecting with your clients on a more deeper level. It makes you look more professional. It builds your reputation. And when I deliver the photos, you put your card information in and boom, it's already downloaded to your computer.
Yep.
And it saves you time, saves you money. In that sense, it's making you more money. So it's saving you money.
Oh, 100%.
Like, and that's what also people don't realize sometimes is in order to make money, you have to invest it.
Yep.
And when I pitch people, it's you are investing in yourself through investing in me.
Right.
And that's when a lot of people actually their eyes widen and they go, oh, wow.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, I never thought about it because a lot of people don't actually sit back and think about the potential that they have. Like they get thrown into an industry maybe by luck, by chance, or they put in the work and they get to a spot where they're comfortable and then they forget what the potential or ideas that they've had for the future. And then I come strolling along and with my drone and I'm like, hey, you wanna be bigger, better, and you want to be Superman? You want to be a superhero kind of deal in your industry? And then they start thinking, and that's also where you get a retainer client.
Yeah.
And that's huge because I work with now 20 real estate agents that are on a consistent basis with me. So that's huge. If you think the average purchase cost is $150 for just a photo shoot, that's just a photo shoot. That's nothing. That's not drone. That's not virtual tours. That's $150.
Yeah.
That's boom, boom, boom. Especially if market keeps going up or depending on whatever happens.
So that actually,
Yeah.
I mean, we could go down a whole nother rabbit hole with that, because now you're talking about that whole 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
So you've got this bread and butter. How much time do you dedicate to them versus going out and prospecting new clients, right? I mean, that's, as you grow, one of the things I wanted to talk about real quick is just growth. And strategic growth is so important.
Yeah.
Because sales can actually be your worst enemy. We sat through this seminar, and that's how the guy started out. He's like, I'm going to convince you that sales are your worst enemy. We're all like, oh, whatever, you're an idiot. You're never going to convince us of that. But he put it in a perspective where, you know, and we can use retail as an example. It's easier to comprehend. But if I make this huge sale, let's use production, Dan's Bike Company, right? If I make this huge sale and I just sold 1,000 bikes, well, I'm not going to get paid for those bikes for, say, 60 days. But I've got to have all that money to support the production of those bikes. So for 60 days, I've got to come up with all this money because I'm not going to get paid for this sale. So people think about, you know, oh, I'm going to take on this huge client. I'm going to take on whoever the biggest realtor is in Omaha. Well, that sounds great in theory, but if you're not strategic about it, it can actually lead to bankruptcy because you can't support these big sales.
Yeah.
So when you grow, and this is usually where I start to wean myself out of the process because it gets a little bit outside of my comfort zone. But strategic growth is the only way to grow. It really is. If you're not growing strategically, you're setting yourself up for failure because those big sales can actually drive you to bankruptcy.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sales could be your downfall. It's weird to think about, but it's true.
Well, you have to have something that keeps you afloat.
Yeah.
And that's the difficult thing. And especially if you're working with one or two big clients, and this happens in real estate all the time, is especially with the market, is people, they make a big sale, you know, they get a nice chunk of commission, and they have to live off that commission for 3 to 6 months.
Right, till they make their next sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially for new agents, they're sitting there and they're like, I haven't gotten paid in 2 months.
Yeah.
I have a car payment. I have a kid. I have a mortgage. What's happening here?
Yeah.
And you know, and that also comes with closing and escrow that you have to wait for, and all those
but it's
back
the same concept,
yeah,
right? I mean, it is.
You're waiting.
Yep.
And that's the thing, that you're relying on somebody else's money to keep you afloat. And I mean, that's what I love retainer clients, because retainer clients is you're having somebody flowing through constantly. And, you know, real estate agents get listings every so often it's not a consistent basis. It's not like they have one every month. But if you on the service side have multiple people that have one listing every 3 months, and that cycles through, you know, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Because when they get that listing, they're gonna use you to the best of their ability.
Right.
You know, like I've had clients where it's a $1,200 photo shoot, and you know they want everything from the nooks and crannies to be photographed, and it's like, all right,
Yeah.
like that's awesome, but then I have to allocate that and do a budget.
Right.
Right,
and you're talking specifically about real estate, but that applies to every market.
Yep.
You know, I think the number one, this is coming from an accountant who was a small business development center director, one of my colleagues, and this is an accountant that's convinced me of this. The number one reason that small businesses fail is because of poor cash flow management. And that's exactly what you're talking about. And that's part of that planning, you know, that when we do projected financials, that sales number, if it's at 10,000 or 100,000, that doesn't mean anything. What means everything is, where did that number come from, and are you cash flowing? Do you have a positive cash flow? That's all that matters. Because if you don't have a positive cash flow, you can't pay your bills.
You're not making money.
And you're probably going out of business.
Hey, I'll see you on the homeless street.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. That's me shaking a can.
Yeah.
Out of glass.
All right. Well, Dan, I appreciate your time. Is there any last remarks, advice that you would give somebody, especially maybe a little teacher aspect of it, of what would you tell someone who's thinking about getting into business?
I would say don't let the $50,000 a year salary person crush your dream, but do some research because you need to be realistic about it. And I think that just because you have a good idea in Sioux City doesn't mean that it would work in California. So there's so many aspects to it. Be realistic, but seek out advice from people that you trust. And small business owners are almost always willing to share at least advice on what didn't work. Here's what I did back then. It didn't work. I wish I would have done it this way. Almost every small business owner is willing to do that, and that's just knowledge.
Okay.
Knowledge is power, yeah. Don't
Knowledge
be
is
afraid
power.
to ask for questions.
Definitely. And I did have one more for you.
Yep.
What is probably the top habit? And we kind of touched on this. What is a top habit of a business owner that they should have?
Other than working your ass off?
Yes.
I'm not sure that I agree with this, but I'm going to give you something that I guess I agree in because I'm going to tell you about it. Every successful person, the common trait that I've read is they're early risers. And I'm not an early riser, so it depends on what you define as early rising, right? I usually get up between 6:30 and 7. I don't know
Before
if that's
8
early
a.m.
or not.
Before 8 a.m. is
Yeah,
an early
yeah.
riser.
So I like to consider myself successful, but I don't get up at 4 a.m. I don't get up at 5 a.m. But that's, I think waking up early and attacking the day. But if you're in the restaurant industry, it's nights and weekends, so maybe that doesn't apply. I don't know.
Yeah. Your industry. Depends.
Yeah.
Everything depends.
I think hard work is the one common trait, really. Drive.
All right.
Grit.
Definitely. Got to be gritty.
Yep.
That's what we say. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dan.
Wait, I have one question for you.
All right.
Let's end this on a proper note.
Okay.
What is your spirit animal and why?
Oh, crap. Here we go. My spirit animal, I think, is an eagle. And the only reason I say an eagle is because an eagle goes after the thing that it wants.
Okay.
So when an eagle sets its sights on something, on its prey, it strategically figures out how to go after it, and then it directly goes to it. And it doesn't take another path. It doesn't do anything. If it fails, it's going to get that prey. it's going to get that prey. Yeah. So that's my spirit animal.
Good one.
I'm an eagle.
Yeah.
What's your spirit animal?
I'm a dog, specifically a Labrador Retriever, because they're cute, they're loyal, and they're smart.
I love it.
Simple as that.
Look at him. Look at him. Look at the little giggle on him. Oh, my gosh. Well, all right. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on to the Business Playground. This is your host, Jacob Odell, and hope that you've learned something today and that this was helpful. Thank you so much. Tuning off.